Okay, so I want you to picture a scene. We're on a red carpet in New York City. You've got the dramatic lighting, cameras flashing
Nah.
everywhere, paparazzi all jostling for the best shot.
The whole scene.
The whole scene, the tension's, palpable. And out walks Bad Bunny. He's in that iconic superstructural suit from the 2024 Met Gala. The silhouette is just, it's unmistakable. But there's a catch.
The catch being that this Bad Bunny is maybe 12 inches tall at the shoulder.
Right.
And he's covered in this curly, hypoallergenic fur and is actually a standard poodle named Ted Graham.
Exactly. And right behind him is Zendaya, or, well, a chihuahua named Kimba,
Right.
wearing this incredible custom recreation of that moody aquatic gown she wore. This is the Pet Gala. It's a real event.
It is a black tie gala at the AKC Museum of the Dog. And look, the premise sounds on its face kind of ridiculous. Dogs in couture.
It does, yeah.
But when you actually see the photos, which we have in our source material today, the craftsmanship it's jarring. It's not a joke. It's technically flawless.
That's the thing that really stops you. It's so easy to just dismiss it as, internet cute or something. But what we're looking at is really the tip of a massive cultural iceberg. The Pet Gala isn't just a funny one-off event. It's a symptom of a much, much bigger shift.
Right. So today we're doing a deep dive into the absolute explosion of pet fashion. A multi-billion-dollar industry that has pretty quietly moved from those little utilitarian raincoats to full-blown haute couture.
An explosion is definitely the right word. We're not just talking about Halloween costumes you grab at the local pet store. We're looking at this strange intersection of high fashion, celebrity culture, and really a fundamental rewiring of how we relate to animals. We've got a whole stack of sources today. We've got interviews with the world's top pet couturier, a guy named Anthony Rubio. We've got deep market analysis reports on luxury pet goods and some really crucial safety guidelines from vets.
So I guess the mission for this dive is to unpack how we even got here. How did we get from the dog sleeps in the barn to the dog is wearing a custom silk organza gown on a red carpet?
Let's start with the money. Because, frankly, the economic data in these reports was just startling. I think the average person, myself included, assumes pet clothes are this tiny niche market for, eccentric billionaires.
Right, but the numbers from the 2024 Global Market Analysis show that this is mainstream volume. It's massive.
How fast are we talking?
The global pet clothing market was valued at roughly $5.85 billion in 2024. And it's not slowing down. The projections show it climbing to nearly $8.8 billion by 2034.
Wow.
But the raw numbers, they don't even tell the full story. The why is what's really fascinating here. The reports all point to this phenomenon they call the humanization thesis.
This is that shift from pet owner to pet parent. I see this all the time. The language has completely changed. You almost never hear someone under 40 call themselves an owner anymore.
Precisely. And that little linguistic shift is the entire economic engine. Think about it. If you see an animal as utilitarian, it guards the house, it catches mice, your spending is utilitarian.
Sure, a bag of kibble and a collar. That's it.
Exactly. But if you see that animal as a family member or basically as a child, your spending flips from maintenance to discretionary.
It becomes emotional spending. And the demographics in the sources really back this up. It's millennials and Gen Z who are driving the vast majority of this growth. Something like 33% of people born between 1981 and 1996 call themselves pet parents.
And you have to look at the context, right? This is a generation facing delayed parenthood, insane housing costs, economic uncertainty.
The dog becomes the starter child.
That's exactly what the market analysis suggests. The pet is the primary outlet for that caregiving instinct and, maybe more importantly, for projection. You project your own identity onto a child, and now you project it onto the dog.
Which is why the big luxury brands are getting in on it. It's not just Petco anymore. It's Louis Vuitton, Prada, Gucci. They all have dedicated pet lines now.
It's the mini-me effect, just for dogs instead of toddlers.
Totally. I was looking at a product catalog in the brief, and the prices are just eye-watering. But from a branding standpoint, it makes perfect sense. If you're curating a specific lifestyle aesthetic for yourself, the dog is an extension of that brand. You can't have a mismatched dog.
It sounds cynical, but that's accurate branding psychology. The dog is an accessory to the life you're projecting. But there's a whole level above the Prada leash. There's a big difference between luxury ready-to-wear and actual couture.
And that brings us to the central figure in our sources today, Anthony Rubio.
The king of canine couture.
His story is fantastic because he treats this with the same seriousness that a Parisian designer would treat a bridal gown. And he didn't even start in pet fashion, did he? He was classically trained in women's wear at FIT.
That's right. And his pivot, it wasn't about fashion at first, it was about anxiety. In 2003, he rescues this little Chihuahua mix that had been badly abused. The dog was just constantly trembling, terrified of everything.
And Rubio noticed that when he held the dog, the shaking stopped.
It's that compression principle, like a thundershoot.
It's exactly.
But Rubio, being a tailor, he approached it like a design problem. He created this fitted jacket specifically to mimic the feeling of a hug. He even called it the hug.
And it worked.
It worked. The dog's anxiety dropped. But because he was a designer, he couldn't just make it functional, he had to make it beautiful. And that's when he realized there was this huge gap in the market for garments that were actually fitted to a dog's anatomy, not just a square of fabric with leg holes.
That anatomy piece is what really struck me in the interviews. I mean, designing for a dog seems way harder than for a human.
Oh, much harder.
Humans are basically vertical. Dogs are horizontal. Their chest-to-waist ratios are all over the place, and they have to run on 4 legs.
And they have to go to the bathroom. Rubio talks a lot about the engineering it takes to keep a gown sanitary. You can't have a long train that gets in the way of,
The potty clearance factor.
It's a real design constraint. But look at his process for the Pet Gala. We said he recreates these Met Gala looks. The human designers have months to work on those gowns. Rubio gets 2 weeks.
That's just an insane sprint. The Met Gala is the first Monday in May. The Pet Gala is usually the 3rd.
So he's watching the red carpet live, sketching looks in real time, and then he starts what he calls the hunt. He's scouring New York for textiles.
The not cheap stuff.
No, he's buying silk shantung, navy organza, glass beaded netting. He talks about creating depth by layering dark sheer netting over bright fabrics to get this Italian Baroque shadow effect.
Which is just wild for a piece of clothing that will be worn by a creature that, chases squirrels.
Yeah.
But let's talk about that Cardi B dress recreation for the chorky Miley Joe. The original dress was this giant black tulle explosion. How do you even put that on a 5-pound dog without crushing it?
It's all structural engineering. He has to build this light internal cage or structure that supports the tulle so it floats around the dog instead of weighing on it. The dog has to move freely. If the dog can't walk, Rubio says the design is a failure.
He's very clear that it's not mockery. He calls it elevating and appreciating.
And his shows raise money for animal rescues, which is an important piece of this. But let's step back for a second and look at the timeline. Because while Rubio is doing this high art version, the whole idea of the celebrity pet is not new at all.
Not at all. Our sources trace this all the way back to the silent film era.
It's a really fascinating evolution. In the 1920s, you have Mary Pickford, America's sweetheart. She was always being photographed with these little terriers.
But back then, the dog was basically a prop, right? It was a tool to soften her image. It signaled, I'm gentle, I'm approachable.
Exactly. It grounds the star. Even Liz Taylor in the 50s said, some of my best leading men have been dogs and horses, the dog as a loyal companion. But then we hit the 2000s, and the whole dynamic just shifts violently.
We enter the era of the handbag dog.
The Paris Hilton effect. This is where the dog goes from being a companion to being a fashion accessory. And it happens right alongside the explosion of designer dog breeds.
The Maltipoos, the Yorkie Poos, all of that. The breeding for aesthetics just went into overdrive.
It did. Paris Hilton's dog, Tinkerbell, wasn't just a dog. She was part of the outfit. Hilton built a $325,000 dog mansion for her pets, a replica of her own home.
So the dog was just an extension of her wealth and that whole campy persona.
Yes, but I would argue we're in a third era now, the era of the autonomous star. Look at Tika the Iggy.
That's a great distinction. Tika, the Italian greyhound from Montreal, she isn't an accessory to a human celebrity. She is the celebrity.
1 million followers. She's worked with Zara and Fendi directly. She has a closet with over 300 custom outfits. In the 2000s, the dog was famous because the human was famous.
And now the human is just the manager. The dog's the talent.
It's a profound shift in agency, or at least in perceived agency, and the money reflects that. You see notes about Mariah Carey spending over £100,000 on a vacation for her dogs with a private chef, or Lady Gaga demanding first-class travel for her Labradoodle.
You're treating the animal not just as a child, but as a VIP.
Which brings us to the inevitable, most extreme end of this living art idea. We have to talk about Gabriel Fitosa.
The groomer who went viral for turning dogs into living sculptures with dye.
The guy who turns poodles into giraffes.
And pandas and lions. I've seen those pictures.
And he charges up to $1,200 for one of these jobs. And I know the immediate reaction for most people when they see a neon green dog is outrage. The comments are just filled with accusations of abuse.
I'll admit, my first thought was, okay, that has to be toxic.
Mm.
Or at the very least, it feels like you're treating the dog like a toy. It feels undignified.
And that's the whole debate. Feitosa is very ready for that criticism. He uses vegan, non-toxic dyes made specifically for pets. There's a video in our notes of him literally eating the dye on camera to prove it's safe.
Wow.
But his argument is interesting. He says the dogs love it. Not the color, of course. Dogs don't care if they're green. They love the attention.
Because everyone on the street stops to pet the green dog.
Exactly. The dog gets massaged for hours during the grooming. Then it becomes a magnet for affection. And he donates these makeovers to shelter dogs. The data shows it works. You take a scruffy overlook mutt, dye it to look like a panda, and it gets adopted immediately.
That really complicates the ethics, doesn't it? If the undignified look saves its life, is it wrong?
It's a tough question, but it brings up the most critical part of this deep dive: safety. Because while Feitosa is a professional eating vegan dye, the average person listening might just grab a Sharpie or a cheap costume.
And the veterinary guidelines we have are pretty strict on this.
They are, and this is where we need to get practical for anyone listening. If you're going to dress up your pet, there are rules. First is the snug test. Simple physics. Too loose, the dog trips. Too tight, you cut off circulation.
You need to be able to fit 2 fingers flat between the fabric and the animal.
Right, and sensory deprivation is a big one. No hoods, no masks.
I see so many costumes with hoods.
It's a huge problem. Dogs use their ears and their peripheral vision for balance and communication. You put a hood on them, you're effectively blinding them and muting their hearing. It's an instant anxiety trigger.
But the most interesting point in the safety guide was about consent. Not verbal consent, obviously. But learning to read the dogs, no.
This is where so many people fail. We tend to, anthropomorphize the reaction. You put a costume on a dog and it just freezes, stands perfectly still. And the owner takes a picture and says, look, he loves it. He's posing.
When freezing is a classic stress response.
It's a shutdown response. It's called tonic immobility. If the dog freezes, tucks its tail, pants when it isn't hot, or tries to rub the costume off on the furniture, that's a hard no. You have to take it off.
The goal should be more like what happened with that Rover.com project, the Oscar dress recreations.
Right. They recreated Bjork's swan dress on a dog named Al. And Al didn't treat it like Couture. He treated the swan's neck like a wearable squeaky toy. He was playing with it.
That's the energy you want.
Exactly. If the dog isn't acting like a dog anymore, the outfit is a problem.
I think that's the perfect litmus test, really. Is
Yeah.
my dog still acting like a dog? Okay, so let's zoom out. We've gone from Mary Pickford's props to Paris Hilton's accessories to Anthony Rubio's high art. We're spending billions on this. What's the big takeaway?
I think it points to a fundamental change in the sort of social contract between humans and dogs. For thousands of years, the contract was, you work for me, I feed you. You herd my sheep, you guard my door.
But now the contract is, you provide me with emotional fulfillment, and I provide you with a lifestyle. The dog's job isn't physical labor anymore. Its job is to be an emotional canvas.
Exactly. And when Rubio spends 2 weeks stitching a tiny gown, he's making a statement that this animal is worthy of the same artistry and effort we give to our most celebrated humans. It elevates the animal's status, but it also binds the animal very tightly to our own ego.
And that's really the tension to leave you with, isn't it? As we keep humanizing our pets with strollers and spa days and couture, are we actually making their lives better? Or are we just turning them into better mirrors for ourselves?
Is the dog happier in the silk dress, or would it prefer the mud puddle?
I suspect the mud puddle wins every single time.
Mm-hmm.
Something to think about next time you're browsing the collar aisle. Thanks for diving deep with us.
See you next time.